Greetings, Ryan Hamilton, Government Relations Associate for the Minnesota Catholic Conference, and today's stop on our Faithful Citizenship Tour brings us to Hastings, Minnesota. As you know, we've chosen a few races across the state to show just how easy it is to reach out to our aspiring legislators, our candidates, and get to know them so we can inform our votes as faithful citizens. And today I'm here with Mr. Shane Hudella. Shane is running to represent District 41B in the Minnesota State Legislature. And we'll just jump right in by getting to know our candidate. So Shane, what motivated you to pursue this line of service? Why are you running for the state legislature?
Well, first, thanks so much for coming by to have a conversation with me. I really appreciate it. I had the fortune of serving our country for 24 years in the Army. I took an oath to the American people to fight and defend the Constitution and our American way of life. In the last couple of years, I felt that a lot of our freedom and a lot of our moral foundation is starting to strip away. And the timing was good for me as my sons are getting older. I felt like I could jump in and do some good for Minnesotans.
Great. We understand that door knocking is a big part of running for this type of office. What are you hearing at the doors from the voters, and how does what you're hearing from the voters align with what you just mentioned in terms of your motivations?
Sure. It's been amazing. I actually love door knocking. I love talking to the folks in the community here. The number two issues have been crime and the economy.
Okay.
Right now, people just don't feel safe. There's a general lack of accountability for crime right now in the Twin Cities and in the suburbs. So those issues align right with the motto that I came up with back in March when I received the endorsement, which is kids, cash, and crime.
Okay.
I feel like we need to build a better, more prosperous future for our kids, and right now we can't do that with crime being out of control and the economy tanking and putting the pinch on Minnesotans.
Great. Well, thanks for that personal background, and let's get into some issues that are of top of mind to our Catholic bishops and the laity here in Minnesota. According to Catholic social doctrine, the family is the foundational block of society. And this view runs in contrast to modern secular society, which prioritizes the individual and even the state sometimes. Child rearing has never been easy or cheap, and that's only gotten more arduous, as cost of living, inflation, things like transportation, consumer goods, healthcare, housing, all those things have skyrocketed. There's a growing perception that family life, raising children, that's a privilege, for the wealthy or people in advantageous situations. That perception is backed up by the numbers. We've seen steady declines in the marriage rates amongst the working classes and the middle classes. So do you agree that despite its vital role in society, that the well-being of the family is taken for granted or neglected?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that right now we've got a lot of problems. I think mental health is at a crisis point in America today, and we're drifting farther and farther away from the family being at the center of our lives. And I think trying to encourage communities to promote families and faith again and that closeness is something we absolutely need to do.
Yeah. So, in a broad sense, what are some strategies that we, as a society, can employ to elevate the status of the family, as you've mentioned, in our politics, media, and culture? How can society better support families in their moral roles and responsibilities?
Well, I think we need to share the success stories. There's so many of them out there, so much joy to be spread. I think that right or wrong, we have a lot of folks on social media right now. A lot of times there's negative messages and negative morality that's communicated through social media. I think we can do a better job of sharing the success stories about families through social media, and then promoting fellowship and support groups. my understanding is that the family night out numbers have been in decline as well, and for us to take a stand to say, hey, we need to take more time with each other as families and support each other is incredibly important.
Yeah, and along the same theme, but a little bit more specific, what role does the state legislature play in creating the economic conditions for families, especially kids raising little minor children, to thrive?
Sure. It's always tricky when you're talking about government getting involved in families. I think families need a little less government in their life, but I do think that the government and legislators have a responsibility to provide safe communities, and I don't think they're doing a great job at that right now. I think that safety is important, and I think it's important to put parents in the driver's seat. Right now I think parents lack some choices in education and some other topics that we can get turned around.
Sure. So we've talked about promoting the family on the positive side. You have a couple of issues that we want to protect the family from, namely vices and substances. In conjunction with advocating for policies that promote the formation of families, our bishops are actively opposed to the legalization and normalization of commercialized vice activities like gambling and marijuana. Would you support the legalization of online sports gambling in Minnesota? What's your reasoning behind it?
Sure. I don't know yet. It's not a topic that I know enough about. Sure. I do know that of all the addictions and vices out there, that gambling has the highest instance of suicide associated with that addiction. On the other hand, we have a lot of gambling mechanisms in place right now. I think I need to get more educated on the topic and would love to consult with clergy on that and try and figure out a balance before I make a decision on it.
And along those same lines, the legalization and commercialization of recreational marijuana. What's your take on that?
Yeah, this is another tricky one, right?
Yeah,
complex. And I'll share a personal story with you. My 20-year-old son in the middle of COVID wasn't able to graduate normally, wasn't able to go to prom, and his best friend overdosed and died from fentanyl in the middle of the pandemic, and it was incredibly hard for him. So I do see one potential side of commercializing it, that you can regulate it and keep fentanyl out of it, because they are starting to find fentanyl and marijuana on the street now. On the other side, I want to see the data out of places like Colorado where it is legal to see if usage has grown or not. Again, consult with clergy on pros and cons from the church's perspective on it. I do think that there is potential from the revenue to invest in anti-drug education. If you look at the anti-smoking campaign over the last few years, did an exceptionally good job at reducing the amount of our youth that are smoking cigarettes today. So it's a topic, again, that I'm not educated enough on yet to make a decision, but very open to talking to both sides.
Great, thank you. Moving to another topic, motherhood and women's health, especially in our post-Roe world. So Catholics hold, as you might imagine, that life is sacred from conception until natural death, and that people at every stage of life, even those in the womb, should be respected, protected, and loved. Given that with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, or that the overturning of that decision is not the end, from our view, it's only the beginning. Abortion is still legal here in Minnesota, and now more than ever, we believe we must create a policy environment where babies are respected in law and where women are not led to believe that abortion is their only option. How do you think we can best support mothers before, during, and after childbirth?
Well, I was really honored to recently be endorsed by the MCCL. I'm pro-life, and I think the answer is through education and support. I think right now, after we've been isolated away for the past 2 years, I think it's time to come together again and support young mothers. I think that a lot of times fear is what leads, especially young mothers, to decide to abort a child, especially when it's not affecting their health or didn't emanate from a criminal activity. So I think education and creating a bigger support system for young women, we can make a lot of advances.
Sure. Transitioning to the other end of this perspective, our closing days, supporting the dignity of life until natural death. We live in an age where highly advanced medical knowledge has enabled us to significantly extend life. At the same time, progress has enabled a throwaway culture such as physician-assisted suicide. And we believe that devalues the culture of people. It targets those who are most deserve compassion, specifically the elderly and low-income individuals and folks with disabilities. For Catholics, physician-assisted suicide is contrary to the dignity of the human person. Legalization of physician-assisted suicide, it unnaturally hastens death when people think that the person's life is no longer has meaning or purpose. So would you be willing to support our efforts to prioritize compassionate alternatives to physician-assisted suicide, such as hospice, palliative care, and help us enact policies that promote accessible, holistic, and dignified end-of-life care?
Yes, I support that 100%. I think it's up to God when we leave this planet, and that power doesn't belong to us. Our technology is so great now that end-of-life care has become advanced to where people aren't suffering. And I think that it's important to recognize that decision isn't up to you or me or a doctor.
Sure. And finally, education. Especially racial equity and economic access to economic opportunity through school choice. Many children in low-income families are frankly trapped in underperforming schools, as their families are not able to afford to choose a school that meets their needs. Do you agree with the principle that all parents should be given a choice to send their children to whatever school meets their family's needs, and that education resources, tax dollars, should follow the student rather than bureaucratic systems?
Yeah, I support that 100%. Right now, education in Minnesota is struggling. A lot of folks are interested in moving their child to a different school where they'll have better opportunities, and I think we should absolutely support that.
Great. That's Shane Hudella, folks. Shane, thank you for the time today. Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to us and informing our voters about your positions and where you're coming from and what you aspire to bring to the people of Hastings in District 41 if elected. Thank you.
Thank you so much.